What's happening? I just had this kind of epiphany, this clarification almost when it comes to a lot of things creatively. This could be said about storytelling in general, even, I would say, no matter what the medium. But certainly with any kind of storytelling, any kind of writing, and comedy, which might seem like its own genre, and to some extent it is, but it's also not. Even extending that out to stand-up comedy and things like this, because I was thinking of this initially from the perspective of stand-up comedy, but I realized you could really extrapolate it out to all writing in general, but also the delivery of that writing, be it through the form of stand-up or a sketch idea or a film or a book or whatever. It's the key to it, I think, as far as where I've had successes so far. I've noticed that it comes from kind of writing in that Hemingway kind of style of not giving a shit what other people think, have to say, worrying about if the audience will get it, perhaps even particularly in the case of comedy. In other words, people read other people's opinions and writings and stories for a reason. It's to either gain insight in general or to hear specifically what that person has to say, or just another perspective in general. And when you get that perspective, it allows you to grow and not necessarily even always agree with this new perspective, but it just gives you the option of considering it and thinking about it and perceiving it and being aware that it even exists at all. And the point of this is that with any kind of live performance or story writing or writing in general, but especially the delivery of such writing in its presentation, whatever form that might be in, whatever medium that might be, the key to its success, because you'll always have people, even if what you're writing or doing is brilliant, who will not understand it or who will not appreciate it or who will not enjoy it, and who will hate on it. So you can't worry about that. You have to write for yourself. But that doesn't mean that you don't still care about quality and that you become like your own tyrant of deciding, well, whatever I think is good is what works. There's an element of that. Your opinion does matter, and you do need to make stuff and write things and talk about stuff essentially in your writing and in your storytelling that does inspire you, that does kind of excite you essentially, and feels risky and feels dangerous. That means you're onto something good. It means you're onto something honest, and it means you're headed towards the truth, because the closer you get to truth, the more even yourself, but certainly others, don't want to hear it aloud and can feel the danger and the heightened anxiety of hearing the truth aloud, because most of us don't live in truth. And so when artists especially bring forward truth, you can feel all kinds of emotions, and it might be awkward, it might be uncomfortable. This is why I like comedy, because it's not about always being comfortable. It's about being challenged and seeing if you still believe what you believed before, or are you now opening yourself up to new dimensions, new possibilities, new perspectives to consider things from. And so I can't stress enough my belief, my sincere belief, that all writing and all art comes down to not that your truth is the only thing that matters, but it does come down to true and free expression. Not because all true and free expression is expressions of objective truth, but because through free expression, especially artistic expression and communication in general, we can get to the bottom of the truth together. And we can expose the truth by exposing things to the light of day. And in this way, I see connections where others don't, when it comes to things like journalism and comedy and philosophy and all these things, and theology and religion and the battle for good and evil itself as well. Because you can pretend, and don't be wrong, I can enjoy large swaths of entertainment and comedy that is just lighthearted, that is just silly. A huge part of my personality is just that. Not all comedy has to have a deep moral meaning. You could say the same with not all stories. But the truth is that what really matters, what really lasts, what's monumental, what's archetypal, and what's objectively true and universally true are the archetypes and the archonic repetition, essentially, of, the laws of nature, the laws of man, the limitations and the consequences of our existence and of our choices, consequences of our choices. We need, especially forms like comedy, but certainly all storytelling, to be championed by truth tellers and be, it's not that, once again, that you can't have people who are just, hey, I'm here for the funny. I'm all for that. And a huge part of me, once again, is like that. But you still need to take time for the drama, for the truth, essentially. And the truth doesn't have to be dramatic or sad or scary per se, but the truth does encompass those things, right? As well as the silly and the wondrous and the eccentric and the fantastic, you know what I mean? Like, all of these things are part of life. And so when it comes to the truth, or trying to speak truth to power, or be a force of good at all, because a lot of comedy is a release of discomfort from, negative truths or bad truths in general, I think it's important. Like, there's a duty to the joker, there's a duty to the court jester to speak truth to power, speak truth to tyrants, but also in general just to try to speak to truth, because that will elicit the most laughter. Because a huge part of laughing, or not even laughing, but just finding something humorous or enjoyable or interesting from an entertainment perspective, is your resonance or relation to the truth of what it's getting at on some level. Even if you disagree with where you can tell the person is coming from, or the way in which they're using that truth, there's something in that fiction, that lie, that artistic piece that actually is true and is very real on a level that might not be obvious on the surface. And so to that end, I say all artists, all storytellers, all writers, all comedians should and ought to be truth tellers, because without that, there's no collective arrival at objective truth, in the social sphere at least. And that's a dangerous world to live in. So, some of my favorite comedy, comedians, stand-up comedians in particular, Robin Williams, top of the heap for sure. But pretty high up there on my list also is Bill Hicks, who was an avid truth teller in many ways, truth seeker. I don't even agree with all of his opinions, certainly don't agree with all of his political opinions, but I came to really respect and admire his comedy and the philosophy that you see presented throughout his stand-up comedy specials. And, I think a lot of comedians like the idea of like, I'm just a silly freak or whatever, and like that's all well and good, but I think deep down we all have something we care about in relation to truth and seeking truth and expressing truth, hopefully, ideally. And that I don't like this idea that you have to be one or the other. Either I'm a silly person who doesn't give a shit about what's really happening, or I'm a super serious political person, commentator of the times, and there's no in between. Like, I'm not trying to be a thought leader. I'm not trying to be a super silly person only. You know what I mean? I'm trying to be something in between, because the best entertainment, the best storytelling, and the best, because once again, what I'm trying to do is not just entertain, is, once again, it's like what every shaman in every culture did throughout time, what every religious holy man did throughout time. What were they trying to do anyway, in theory? Speak the truth. Remember the truth. Let others and themselves know what the truth is. That's a valid thing to seek, because we all fall short and will fall short, but if we don't seek it, especially in our artistic expressions and our artistic considerations, you know what I mean? Like, if we don't pursue higher philosophy and higher thinking, higher intellect through comedy and through entertainment and through storytelling itself, then we are wasting a very large and central purpose to even why these mediums and artistic forms exist. And to that, I say and encourage all my fellow aspiring and successful stand-up comedians, all my fellow writers, all my fellow thinkers, philosophers, be it amateur, professional, or otherwise. The truth matters, and seeking the truth matters, and expressing the truth and articulating the truth is the most profound and important thing that I think any of us can do with our lives.